Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us here on RSBN Live. I'm Matthew Alvarez as we're looking live there at the U.S. Capitol building. Of course, not looking too bright and blue skies there right now, but maybe later in the day the clouds will disperse as I believe it's a sunny day in Washington, even though it says it's not, only figuratively speaking when it comes to the great things that are happening in our country every day. And it's great to cover all of these things that really are helping the American people. So in a few minutes, we will head to Capitol Hill for a hearing to consider the nomination of John Phelan to be the Secretary of the Navy. So we'll be going to that a bit later. And then later today, of course, the President will be meeting with the UK Prime Minister. And there will be also a press conference a bit later today. RSBN's Robert McNeely will join us as well as we continue our coverage with another foreign leader now visiting on the heels of another one tomorrow. So we'll get to all that in a little bit. All of this brought to you by Colonial Metals Group and Republican Red. So Colonial Metals Group, you see right there. All you have to do is go to freegoldguide.com/RSBN for more information on this retirement warning that we're hearing, because at the end of the day, with BRICS nations and some billionaires, dropping a number of stocks, it's kind of a time to see Maganomics increase, but also to have your retirement or savings, or at least a portion of it, into gold and silver through a tax-sheltered IRA, a 401k. You can get a free info kit on gold and silver with Colonial Metals Group. So all you do is go to freegoldguide.com/RSBN. So it's freegoldguide.com/RSBN. Also at 9:17 this morning, let's talk about the great people at Republican Red and the great wine there. So republicanred.com, a great winery there in California. All you have to do is use the RSBN promo code. You'll get quite a discount off there with the Pinot Noir. There's red blends, the sparkling wine that you see. So it's exclusively at republicanred.com. As you see there, the wine for the right side. All right, so it's Thursday, February 27th. We will be going to a lot of coverage today, throughout the day, but specifically this morning, as you guys see there, the U.S. Capitol building, we will go to that Senate Committee on Armed Services committee hearing to conduct a nomination hearing for the Secretary of the Navy, again, John Phelan. So that will be happening here shortly. Also joining us soon will be RSBN's Christina Loren, live from Nashville. It'll be great to hear her take on that first month in office for President Trump, among the foreign leaders visiting the White House, and also immigration when it comes to illegal aliens / the fentanyl coming through. President Trump recently on Truth Social posting about that as well. So we'll get to all of that in just a minute. Also, next week, as you guys have heard, the March 4th date of a speech by the president. He'll address a joint session of Congress. So it'll be great to have that coverage here live on Right Side. And speaking of live, the press conference that will happen at the East Room later today with the United Kingdom Prime Minister Keir Starmer and President Trump, that will be at 2 o'clock Eastern time, so around 2 o'clock. So as soon as that starts, we'll take you there live to the White House. We'll also be able to have various coverage of when the two leaders meet, as we have in the past here, with a number of the foreign leaders that greet the president. And sometimes it's someone else that greets the foreign leader, but regardless, diplomacy at its finest, as we are friends with the United Kingdom, of course, and always have been, regardless of even political ideologies on sides of certain leaders. It's great to see that President Trump is meeting yet again with another foreign leader. And then tomorrow, Vladimir Zelensky of Ukraine. So this is almost pushing even 8, 9, and up to 10 foreign leaders over the next few weeks here, just in the first month and a half of President Trump's second administration. We're also hearing that Attorney General Pam Bondi says there's an initial batch of Epstein list information will be released today. She said that yesterday on Fox. So if that is something that we get to see here, or hear a press conference from the DOJ and Pam Bondi on that, we will be able to take you there live, or have a tape playback where we can send that to you as well here live on the network. So again, Attorney General Pam Bondi says that an initial batch of Epstein list information, flight logs and other information, will be released today, according to the Attorney General Pam Bondi. Other news we're following at Right Side Broadcasting Network, the Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem announced that in a single month under President Trump, ICE arrests have increased by 627%. Quite a staggering statistic. Great to see that. However, though the illegal alien numbers are going down and though there's a deportation process happening, the fentanyl and the drug problem is still happening. That, according to President Trump, we can go to that Truth Social post here in just a second, as I'll have Christina Loren as well. She could talk about that with the illegal immigration situation, that it's, that's tapering off, the amount of illegal aliens that are crossing the border. But somehow, some way, whether it's through the border crossings, the actual ones where you're driving a vehicle, maybe somebody has a license that is in the United States, and they're smuggling drugs somehow, or underground tunnels, who knows. But not only in Mexico, also in Canada, that according to the president. So let's get to that Truth Social post right here as we continue our live coverage on this Thursday, February 27th. Cloudy up there in Washington, D.C., but I'm sure as the sun continues to hopefully burn through those clouds, we'll have a nice sunny day there. So President Trump 36 minutes ago said, quote, drugs are still pouring into our country from Mexico and Canada at very high and unacceptable levels. A large percentage of these drugs, much of them in the form of fentanyl, are made in and supplied by China. More than 100,000 people died last year due to the distribution of these dangerous and highly addictive poisons. Millions of people have died over the last 2 decades. President Trump continues on here saying the families of the victims are devastated and in many instances virtually destroyed. We cannot allow this scourge to continue to harm the USA, and therefore, until it stops, what President Trump is saying here, or is seriously limited, the proposed tariffs scheduled to go in effect on March 4th will indeed go into effect as scheduled. China will likewise be charged an additional 10% tariff on that date. The April 2nd reciprocal tariff date will remain in full force and effect. President Trump says, thank you for your attention to this matter. And in caps, all caps, he says, God bless America. That at 9:46, actually 8:46 Central, he said that there. I think I have my iPad on the Eastern time zone here, so 8:46 Eastern time. That was from President Trump. This all brought to you by, speaking of taxes, Tax Network USA. So if you're looking to settle your back taxes, you can do that through the great group of people there, the Tax Network USA. 800-357-1415 is the number. You can also go to tnusa.com/RSBN for more information. They'll help you along the way to take care of any back taxes and to help settle back taxes. 800-357-1415. All right, so it's 9:24 this morning. Again, President Trump will meet with Keir Starmer around 12:15 outside of the West Wing there, as he usually greets the foreign leaders. At that time, they go to the Oval Office, and there is kind of a preliminary press conference of sorts to the one that's supposed to be at 2 o'clock in the East Room. If you saw the other day with the French President Emmanuel Macron, President Trump and the French leader, they had a press conference in that Oval Office. I mean, there were at least 25 minutes worth of back and forth with the press there. So that may be what happens today. But we do know there is a scheduled 2 p.m. Eastern press conference in the East Room of the White House. Those are 9 times out of 10, if not 10 times out of 10, a live feed to the East Room. So we'll bring you to that a little bit later in the broadcast as well. That will be on a different stream, however. We start at 11:45 Eastern for that stream. This stream you're watching, of course, in a few minutes we'll head to Capitol Hill as we're awaiting the hearing to consider the nomination of John Phelan to be Secretary of the Navy. All right, so other than that, other news we're following again. Under President Trump, ICE arrests have increased by 627%. That, according to the DHS Secretary Kristi Noem. So we're seeing that increase happening. Also, speaking of confirmations and hearings like today, there are 3 cabinet positions left that will be taken care of, hopefully in the near future. the U.S. Ambassador to the UN, Elise Stefanik, the Secretary of Education, Linda McMahon, and the Secretary of Labor, Lori Chavez-DeRemer. So those three people are yet to be confirmed and final voted on for the U.S. Senate floor. Once they are, they'll be in their positions. Now, yesterday, if you paid attention at all to the specifics, maybe there's a photo that you might have saw with the cabinet meeting. On those placards, those cards in front of each of the cabinet officials, it would say, you know, the Secretary of Defense, right, Pete Hegseth. Well, with Linda McMahon, it did say the designee Secretary of Education. So it did show there that, you know, she's still awaiting that confirmation and that nomination via the Senate. And I was wondering yesterday why the Education Department, why is that being delayed at all? Why is that not something that's happening right away? And I was thinking about it yesterday. We know that DOD and HHS and DHS and HUD and all of these huge cabinet positions are filled now, and they're very important, each of them, we know that. But why would education be slow-rolled right now? Is it because we're going to have a drastic change to the education system in this country? Is it because a lot of the education is going to go back to the states? Are there people that are afraid of our education system going to the right side of history? And it just made me think about, sure, it's great to have law and order increased and have our military on the southern border and our freedom fighters as needed to take care of any business if ever called upon. President Trump saying about the military that he wants to see the strongest military basically of all time, one that's so strong that we won't even ever have to use it. That's that peace through strength personified. So it'd be great to see that happen. But back to education, the thoughts and the, the teachings that are done by various schools around this country and all of the brainwashing that has taken place in that institution of education. Not every teacher, not every school, but those that do. Why is there a delay on that? So that's just a rhetorical question at this point for the Secretary of Education, Linda McMahon. We want to see her in her post, and we want to see this go to the next level there at that department. Also, the U.S. Ambassador to the UN designee is Elise Stefanik, and Lori Chavez-DeRemer out of Oregon for the Secretary of Labor. So we're looking for all of that here soon. Also, joining us soon may be the RSBN host, Christina Loren from Nashville. And Director, do we have any word on her? Okay, don't hear anything yet on that, so we'll see what happens as it's 9:30 right now. So we will be seeing some live coverage here shortly with the U.S. Capitol building. Of course, we'll be going to the Capitol Hill for some coverage live right here as we wait for the Secretary of the Navy when it comes to the appointment and the nomination of John Phelan to be the Secretary of the Navy. Also, let's go to brightcore.com, so mybrightcore.com/RSBN. You see that great information on your screen. All you got to do is buy 2, get 1 free. I mean, this is Kimchi One. So kimchi is a probiotic, of course. It's for gut health and immune support, anti-aging properties. 888-722-0936. A great company there, Brightcore, made in the USA. And if you just saw the other day, the great founder and owner of Brightcore, Kim Bright, joined us right here on Right Side Broadcasting Network. Quite awesome to see that. And it was a lengthy interview, but at the end of the day, someone that's rooted in the MAGA movement and also in MAHA, Making America Healthy Again. So a great product there, mybrightcore.com/RSBN. Speaking of Making America Healthy Again, if you're just joining us today and you didn't check out our live coverage yesterday, as you know, various parts of our departments have been corrupted with a mind virus that is being taken away now. We're seeing that through various cabinet leadership and by the leadership of the President of the United States. So as the corruption leaves, our country becomes healthy again indirectly using the MAHA talking point there, not only with our food supplies and our food toxicity that RFK Jr. will be taken care of, but overall, just the health of our overall country with various departments. So we're seeing a lot of great work by each of these great patriots, as I called them yesterday, an all-star cast of patriots meeting around President Trump. I mean, Scott Turner, the Secretary of the HUD, House and Urban Development, what an awesome way to start out that coverage yesterday at that cabinet meeting with a prayer and everybody, either bowing their heads or out of respect to God. And it was quite awesome to see that. And I know that a lot of you were surprised to see that because we haven't seen those kind of things happen in Washington, D.C. for a long time. And we aren't surprised to the fact that President Trump and the team are Bible-believing people. They are. And it's great to see that. And because the majority of this country, what we're founded on is that the Jewish and Christian faith. So great to see that. And if you aren't part of any of those faith systems, obviously welcome here to watch us at Right Side Broadcasting Network, because we know that President Trump is the president of all of America. And it's great to see that he's working on law and order and shutting down the border and has all of these great cabinet picks doing awesome jobs at each of their respective positions. So, so it's 9:32 a.m. Christina Loren, if she's not able to join us today, maybe she'll join us another time as we continue our live coverage until the beginning of this Capitol Hill hearing to consider the nomination of John Phelan to be Secretary of the Navy. Of course, each of the military branches out there, and including the National Guard, doing so many great things for our country. I mean, if you look at the U.S. Coast Guard alone, when it comes to along our coasts and the waterways, helping out with the illegal immigration situation, where there are several boats, whether it's coming in from Tijuana up around to the San Diego area across the border. You remember there were about 14 illegal aliens, all adult males that were taken from our country and deported. So we see that on both coasts. We see that in the Gulf of America. We see that in the Atlantic as well. There are several sheriffs as well that want their deputies, especially along coastlines, to assist, and they work with Customs and Border Protection and the Department of Homeland Security. And now, because of that national emergency on the southern border, we see not only the Army, but we see the Marines, we see the National Guard, we see so many of our military there to help protect the southern border, and in turn, dramatically drop the crime rate, dramatically drop the influx of illegal aliens. Unfortunately, what we're seeing right now, though, President Trump's saying the fentanyl situation is still a problem, not only at the southern border, but at the northern border as well. If you remember the executive orders a while ago President Trump was signing, was talking about the fact that there are Mexican drug cartels in Canada north of the border. Quite interesting to see that, as we have a live picture there to this hearing. So let's go to Capitol Hill right now. Matthew Alvarez. Okay, the producer says to keep going. All right, I'll do that. All right, so not sure which live shot that was, but we may go back to that as I am directed by our producer here at the network. 9:34 Eastern. Again, we're also hearing from the Attorney General, Pam Bondi. Says an initial batch of the Epstein list information will be released today. So, of course, that'll be a national, international story. Other news we're following at the network, Kristi Noem with the Department of Homeland Security saying there's an increase of ICE arrests by 627%. That's insane, mind-boggling numbers there. Great for our country. This is what we, the people, of course, voted on and voted for when we voted for President Trump back on November 5th to go to the right side of history. So we saw that, we're seeing that, and it's every day before our eyes we're seeing this great move from our nation. So quite awesome, and I'm sure the people of this country are cheering on the president, the cabinet, and everyone that is based in common sense in the Constitution. And this is great too, because not only is there a reform happening in our country, there's reform happening in the media as well. Reform into conservative media, where we're seeing so many great exploits of information that are based in common sense. So great to be a part of that as we are live here at 9:35 a.m. Again, later today at 11:45 in the morning, we'll start live coverage for the UK Prime Minister's visit to the White House. And then also a bit later, there will be a 2 p.m. press conference that we'll have here live between both leaders. Tomorrow, we'll see the Ukrainian president, Vladimir Zelensky, live as well as he is visiting the White House. So we're seeing that meeting happen. We're seeing President Trump said he will be meeting with Vladimir Putin as well. We don't know when that timetable is happening, but this is a president that is going to go all out for our country, for the free world, to stop wars, to do great things. And we are cheering him on as we, the people, want freedom for us. But we also love that there's a stopping of wars anywhere. Isn't it interesting that in prior administrations, not President Trump's first administration, but prior administrations, the whole call to war and all of that was started by some various presidents in the past, or at least fan the flames of that. That's awful. That whole military industrial complex and all the money made from war. Are you serious? Like the loss of life. I mean, so to know that we have an outsider in the White House that isn't bought and paid for, is someone that is on the team of freedom and for the free world is great. So what an awesome time to say a title of the leader of the free world. Well, we know that to be President Donald Trump, not because just because of President Donald Trump, it's because he stands for. And I think that's the thing that's confusing to some people, maybe in the left-wing media and maybe some people across the country. You know, conservative media, we're all talking positively about what's happening in our country because it's facts. These are common sense things. These are great things that we're seeing. So as we see that, we're reflecting that information to you. And we're fans of the Constitution here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. We're fans of making America great again. And it happens to be that the person that has done this since day one in 2015, 2016, and then in office in 2017 is President Trump. And then on top of that, he's a alpha male bulldog guy that is also funny when he does his speeches, and even when during serious times of life, he's still able to make people laugh. I mean, this guy is great. Make America great again. Well, the only way you can do that is to have someone that is a great leader. And last point I want to make before we continue our coverage is the fact that I think a lot of people, including Democrat leadership and some in the Republican Party, not everybody, have never seen a strong leader. President Trump is absolutely strong. And that may be intimidating to some. Maybe, and then you think from the radical left extremists, they're saying all these, they try and label President Trump as he's this and he's that guy and he's going to do this to our country and he's ripping the Constitution in half. Come on. They're just afraid of someone that is doing the right job and doing it for what he was made to do. You know, most of all of us were made to do something on this earth until we're out of here, until we're on the other side, right? Well, President Trump, we know, was made for this time, and he is doing a great job, and it's great to see it. All right, so I'm getting some text here. I'm not sure if we'll have Christina Loren joining us live. Let's see here. Okay. All right, so Director, it says that she's been waiting. It says there's another meeting in progress. So let me double check that she has the correct. Okay, right. So there's a new link that we have to send to her, so I'll do that on the fly right here. Okay, so once we see her on the line, we'll go there live as well in Nashville. Of course, you heard from RSBN's Christina Loren and Ashley Brassfield and Robert McNeely just the other day at CPAC. It was quite awesome with that coverage there. 3 straight days of coverage. President Trump's speech was quite awesome at CPAC as well. So, yeah, we're looking forward to hearing from Christina here in a bit. Also, a bit later in today's broadcast, whether it starts at 11:45 and it goes through the 2 o'clock hour, because that's when the press conference is between our president and the UK Prime Minister. We'll also have a few lined up interviews as well a bit later today. So it continues to bring various analysis and commentary into the network here as we continue our live coverage. Let's look at some possible breaking news. Just do a quick on-the-fly breaking news check right now, and we'll see. It looks like there's been an ethics complaint filed with the U.S. House of Representatives against Dan Crenshaw by the American Accountability Foundation for threatening the life of journalist Tucker Carlson. That's interesting. That's from Leading Report, that there is an investigation into that. If you didn't see that video, Dan Crenshaw was talking to a reporter with GB News, which is out of course, Great Britain. And Nigel Farage has been on that network, so it's a conservative leaning network. And in a hot mic situation, Dan was saying something about that threat there. So if you want to take a look at that, that's out there as well. As it's 8:41. Okay. Director, she says it says there's another meeting in progress, as I sent her the new link. Okay. Yep, I sent her that new link as well. All right. So 9:41 a.m. Eastern Time, as we're waiting the hearing in Washington, D.C. on Capitol Hill. All right, so it's 9:41. Let's go to a commercial break, and we'll be right back here on RSBN Live.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First News. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed. So join us and be part of the right side of history.
I'm excited to announce that we're having our first ever mega sale on overstock clearance and brand new products. For example, save over 50% on this season's flannel sheets. Queen size only $59.98. King only $69.98. They sell out fast every year, so order now. Save 20% on our brand new My Crosses. They're designed in the likeness of the one I've worn every day for over 20 years. They come in men's and women's, and they're made right here in the USA. Get our 2025 six-piece My Towel sets for only $29.98. Our initial quantities are extremely low, so get them now before they go. And our best-selling standard My Pillows, just $14.98. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use this promo code to take advantage of our first ever mega sale. But wait, remember that $75 free shipping rule? Well, that ship is sailed, because right now, every order ships absolutely free.
Parents, do your kids know what courage really means? It's about standing up for America even when there's a target on your back. That's why Mike Huckabee's team created the Kids Guide to the Courage of the President. This important guide tells kids everything they need to know about President Trump's unwavering courage, and you can get it for free. With your free order, you'll receive free bonus gifts, including the Kids Guide to President Trump and a Christmas ornament commemorating Trump's call for us to fight. Get it all for free at freetrumpbook.com. That's freetrumpbook.com.
Families across the nation have arrived at a heartbreaking crossroad to surrender their beloved animals at alarming rates due to inflation and soaring costs of living.
There are so many overcrowded shelters. So many dogs need a home, but it's all of us working together to solve this crisis.
This fight requires both doers and dollars. Join us at Big Dog Ranch Rescue. Please sign up today.
Hey y'all, it's Silk from the Diamond and Silk Chit Chat live show. Look, don't forget to check me out right here on RSBN Network. Be sure to watch the show on Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. Yes, it's imperative that you do so, okay? I look to see y'all soon. Bye-bye.
Okay, welcome back. We had some technical difficulties earlier, but now we are ready to go to Capitol Hill. This is for the nomination of John Phelan to be the Secretary of the Navy.
Mandate is fulfilled in the Department of the Navy. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I hope everybody will support my good friend, John Phelan.
Thank you very much, Senator. And Mr. Phelan, you are now recognized for your opening statement.
Chairman Wicker, Ranking Member Reed, and distinguished members of the committee. It's an honor to sit before you as the nominee for Secretary of the Navy. Thank you for the opportunity. I would also like to thank Senator Scott for his generous introduction. I'm fortunate to be joined here by my wife, Amy, my daughter, Mackenzie, as well as some dear friends behind me. Their unwavering support through the confirmation process has been invaluable. I am deeply grateful to President Trump for his trust and confidence in me. President Trump was right. Achieving peace through strength is essential to deterrence and protecting our freedom and our way of life. Recently, I had the humbling experience of visiting Arlington National Cemetery with Medal of Honor recipients and Gold Star family members. Standing among those thousands of crosses and reflecting on the magnitude of what these brave warriors accomplished, but most importantly, sacrificed, remind me of a quote by the late Major Doug Zembeck, also known as the Lion of Fallujah. Never forget those that were killed, and never let rest those that killed them. If confirmed, I will use my business, military charitable work experience, and military charitable work experience to ensure that our Navy and Marine Corps are prepared to meet the moment. The U.S. Navy and Marine Corps remain the most formidable expeditionary force in the world, but the U.S. Navy is at a crossroads. Extended deployments, inadequate maintenance, huge cost overruns, delayed shipbuilding, failed audits, subpar housing, and sadly, record high suicide rates are systemic failures that have gone unaddressed for far too long. And frankly, this is unacceptable. Admiral Bull Halsey put it best: all problems become smaller if you don't dodge them, but confront them. If confirmed, that's exactly what I will do. The Department of the Navy's mission requires persistent global deployment across 72% of the Earth's surface and the airspace above it. If confirmed, my focus will be on three priorities: the health, welfare, and training of sailors and Marines, strengthening naval capabilities, particularly shipbuilding and the defense industrial base, and fostering an adaptive, accountable, and innovative warfighter culture. Senators, as you all know, people are our most precious resource, and their health and welfare must be our utmost priority. Recruiting and retention challenges have left critical positions unfilled, stretching our forces thin and reducing readiness. Ships lack full crews, deployments are extended, and the burden on sailors and their families increases. Recruitment and retention challenges demand a renewed focus on quality of life issues. If we are to attract and retain the best talent, the Navy needs to become a place where men and women see not just a job, but a future. Next, we must restore operational readiness. Today, we face a strategic inflection point. Adversaries, in particular China, are aggressively expanding their naval capabilities. Every shipbuilding delay, every maintenance backlog, and every inefficiency is an opening for our adversaries to challenge our dominance. We cannot allow that to happen. Naval innovation must also extend beyond hulls and keels. Strengthening relationships with the defense industrial base, incorporating lessons from recent conflicts, and integrating emerging technologies are essential to maintaining our competitive advantage. This requires more than just funding. It requires a relentless focus on execution, innovation, and accountability. As to culture, the Navy and the Marine Corps historically have embodied resilience, ingenuity, and adaptability. More than ever, we need to return to this ethos. I've analyzed thousands of organizations. A common refrain among those that are failing is, "This is how we've always done it." Yes, there is great value in stability and tradition, which I will respect and do appreciate. But when it suffocates adaptability, innovation, collaboration, and trust, it erodes an organization's ability to win. I understand that some may question why a businessman who did not wear the uniform should lead the Navy. I respect that concern. The Navy and the Marine Corps already possess extraordinary operational expertise within their ranks. My role is to utilize that expertise and strengthen it, to step outside the status quo and take decisive action with a results-oriented approach. I do recognize the critical importance of working closely with Congress, and particularly this committee. As my father who served often reminded me, freedom isn't free. That's why I accepted this nomination, because I believe in service to those who dedicated their lives to defending this nation. Senators, if confirmed, it is my pledge to support our sailors and Marines and ensure we remain the premier maritime force in the world. Thank you, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you very much. First of all, Mr. Phelan, there are standard questions which this committee is required to ask you and which you are required to answer. So let's begin with that. Have you adhered to applicable laws and regulations governing conflicts of interest?
Yes, sir.
Have you assumed any duties or taken any actions that would appear to presume the outcome of the confirmation process?
No, sir.
Exercising our legislative and oversight responsibilities makes it important that this committee, its subcommittees, and other appropriate committees of Congress receive testimony, briefings, reports, records, and other information from the executive branch on a timely basis. Do you agree, if confirmed, to appear and testify before this committee when requested?
Yes, sir.
Do you agree to provide records, documents, and electronic communications in a timely manner when requested by this committee, its subcommittees, or other appropriate committees of Congress, and to consult with the requester regarding the basis for any good faith delay or denial in providing such records?
Yes, I do.
Will you ensure that your staff complies with deadlines established by this committee for the production of reports, records, and other information, including timely responding to hearing questions for the record?
Yes, sir.
And there may be questions for the record today because we will have rounds of only 5 minutes. Will you cooperate in providing witnesses and briefers in response to congressional requests?
Yes.
Will those witnesses and briefers be protected from reprisal for their testimony or briefings?
Yes.
Here endeth the required questions. All right, Mr. Phelan, you have extensive experience in entrepreneurship. You testified in your prepared statement about health and welfare, about moving past the status quo in our recruiting and in shipbuilding and in increasing and enhancing the industrial base through execution and accountability. What could you elaborate on what you think we need to do based on what you've heard to improve recruiting?
Thank you for the question, Senator. I think there are a couple of different things. First of all, I think in the last month, as you mentioned in your opening statement, recruiting numbers have gone up, and I think that's a reflection of first the president's victory, and secondly a return to the warfighting ethos, which is really what the business of the military is. I believe a couple different things. One, we have the 250th anniversary of the Navy and the Marine Corps coming up this year. I think that's a great opportunity to show the benefits of service, and that's something I intend to take advantage of from a recruiting perspective. Secondly, I think we can do things better from a digital perspective in terms of outreach. Third, I think there's something to be learned from the Marine Corps, who's been pretty consistent in hitting their numbers. As I understand it, the Marine Corps has used the same advertising agency for over 30 years, which I believe has allowed it to build its brand and has got a very powerful message. So I think that's something else we need to focus on is the marketing and showing the benefit of serving and what a great opportunity that is for young people and what they get by serving.
Okay, let's move to shipbuilding. If we threw $1 zillion at the Department of the Navy today, we couldn't build the ships because we don't have the industrial base. We've got to fix that. And I think that's why the president looked to an entrepreneur and an experienced business person. How are we going to fix our industrial base so we can get to the number of ships that are required for us to be competitive and a deterrent to adversaries that are working together like they've never done before: Iran, Russia, North Korea, and Communist China.
Thank you for the question, Senator. I know this issue is important to you, and we spent some time together when I met with you in the office. I think this is a critical task. The president has been very consistent when he spoke with me: shipbuilding, shipbuilding, shipbuilding. I think, if confirmed, I intend to go visit the shipyards. I look forward to hopefully visiting it with you in Mississippi, because I know you've done an exceptional job in the shipbuilding there. And I think we need to take some of the best practices from those yards, some of the best practices from some of the foreign yards as well, to learn. But we have to reinvigorate the industrial base in America. That could come from a couple of different angles. I think the SHIPS Act, I know, is something that's being considered. I think there's some very good ideas in the SHIPS Act in terms of trying to reinvigorate the industrial base, such as opportunity zones for shipbuilding. And I think that if we can incent the private sector in the right way, and I think that's by telegraphing demand, then you will get the private sector to actually invest in these yards. And I think that that's an important thing. And then I think it's also making a career out of having the appropriate skill set in the workforce. And that comes from training and having proper programs. I think these are things that I have experience with businesses that I've run in terms of construction companies, and how to create an apprentice program that attracts people and also makes sure your most talented, skilled labor doesn't leave so quickly, and actually passes on those skills.
Mr. Phelan, when a shipyard welder can go outside the gate and work at a convenience store for a competitive price, that has got to be fixed, does it not?
It does, sir. That needs to be analyzed and looked at, and you can't have that kind of wage differential for those types of different jobs.
All right. Thank you very much for your testimony. I'm going to recognize the distinguished ranking member for questions, and hand the gavel to Senator Cotton until I'm back from another hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Phelan. Let me zero in on one aspect of the shipbuilding, and that's submarine construction. As I pointed out, and as you well know, we're behind. And in addition to being behind, we've already made commitments to Australia to provide attack submarines, and that increases the demand on the system. Fortunately, we've been trying to increase funding for submarine construction. I must commend the chairman for his efforts last year to include $5 billion. But let me just ask you, how do you evaluate the importance of submarine, not only the Navy, but the national defense? And how do you propose to secure sufficient funds to get us back on track?
Thank you for the question, Ranking Member Reed. I appreciated the time we spent talking about this, for sure. Look, I think it's the Columbia submarine program is incredibly important. It's the most important nuclear deterrent we have. It's a resilient, survivable one that we have. I think that I need to really get in there and dig in and take a look at what exactly is causing the delays. I'm a big believer in what we call kind of root cause analysis. I think there's a lot of this going on between requirements, contractors, workers, and I've not had the benefit of visiting the yard. I look forward to doing that with you, if confirmed. I think that, it's a very complicated manufacturing process. I do think we need to analyze ways to create more competition for some of the components that are made in this sub, and potentially in sub making. And the question is, how do you do that? And that comes from incentives. That comes from working together with the private sector. And I think ultimately, at the end of the day, what you want to try to do is make it so that the private sector you make the pie bigger, and so that they can have a smaller slice of a bigger pie. And I think if we can create the right incentives, that's the right way. I think one of the things, again, and I've not reviewed contracts, from what I can see, I'm candidly fearful of what I'm going to find when I read some of these contracts and get in there in terms of their pro to the private sector side. But we're going to need to go in there, take a look at them. If they need to be restructured, then we're going to have to do that. But we have to get back to more of a concept of shared risk. I think it's fine for the private sector to earn a profit. They should make a profit based on the risk that they're taking. And that's what we need to really get back to and look at. So if confirmed, Ranking Member Reed, this will be a top priority for us very quickly to get our arms around this and try to get this out.
Well, thank you very much. And I think you recognize the invaluable role that the civilian workforce provides to the Navy and Marine Corps. Is that your view?
Yes, sir.
Well, it's interesting because the Department of Defense announced a few days ago that 5,400 probationary employees would be fired without any real analysis of the need. But more troubling is the declaration that there will be an eventual 5 to 8% reduction, which works out to about 70,000+ people. And I don't know if you're aware of this, but Section 129A of Title 10 requires that no federal civilian workforce employee can be fired unless the Secretary, quotes, I'm quoting now, unless the Secretary conducts an appropriate analysis of the impacts of such reductions on workload, military force structural lethality, readiness, operational effectiveness, stress on the military force, and fully burdened course. So the simple question is, do you intend to follow the law as you pursue these reductions?
Thanks for the question, Senator. If confirmed, I will follow all laws, all lawful orders that we get. I am not privy to the actual cuts that have occurred. I've just read what's been in the paper as it relates to it. I do think the shipbuilding force is critical. I don't know if we have labor shortages. I suspect in certain yards we do. And, if confirmed, I will sit down with the Secretary of Defense and the President and very quickly talk about that, because I know that is a key priority for the President, is ensuring that our shipbuilding is done and taken care of.
Frankly, finally, will you make available the documentation that the Department of Defense must have to justify these firings?
I'm sorry, say that again, Senator.
Would you commit to the committee to make available to us the documentation of all the criteria that I've listed in the statute so that we can confirm that such a review has been conducted?
I will, Senator, I will follow all laws that exist. I assume you guys get that documentation.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Senator Fisher.
Thank you, Senator Cotton. It's nice to see you here today, Mr. Phelan, and welcome to your friends and family for being here with you. I appreciate you putting yourself forward to serve your country in this capacity. Mr. Phelan, in your advanced policy questions to the committee, you stated, quote, "If confirmed, I will ensure the department complies with existing statutory requirements to continue funding development of the nuclear sea-launched cruise missile," unquote. Do you stand by that statement, yes or no?
Senator, I think the nuclear sea-launched cruise missile is a very important program. I have not been read in on the briefings on that, but I know it is a critical component to our defense.
And will you follow those statutory requirements?
Yes, I will.
Thank you, sir. To follow up on the shipbuilding part that's been discussed by the chairman, the Strategic Posture Commission recommended the establishment of additional shipyards dedicated to nuclear-powered ships and submarines. If confirmed, would you be open to exploring that option?
Yes, I would, Senator. I think it's a very important part of our strategic focus.
Thank you. What we've learned from the war in Ukraine is that the United States Defense Industrial Base was not equipped to scale up production rates of munitions for these modern conflicts. Is it your view that the United States must further increase munition production capacity?
Yes, Senator. I think we're at a critical shortage, and we have far too much dependence on one facility.
Do you have any initial thoughts that you can share with us about steps that maybe you would be taking to ensure that the Navy has the munition stockpiles that are required to meet the needs of the combatant commanders?
Yes, Senator. I think, as you know, we are short munitions, as we've seen. I think we need to create more of a manufacturing base and incentivize more munitions plants in order to supplement what we already have. So if confirmed, I intend to focus on this very quickly and get that resolved, because I think we're at a dangerously low level from a stockpile perspective and as well as new. So I will use the skills that I had in the business world in terms of incenting. And I think a lot of that also comes with working with you and the committee and the Congress, because we do need to send signals to the private sector to incentivize them to build these plants to get going. So ordering and giving them a contract to build, I think, will be critical. And I'd like to believe we should be able to create a win-win between the private sector and for the taxpayer of the United States.
You mentioned contracts with the shipbuilding, too, to be able to do a review of those contracts to make sure that there are incentives, that private companies can make profits with that. You mentioned contracts again now. Would you look at that as well in depth on current contracts that we have with regards to our munitions, and if maybe what we're looking at here are roadblocks in being able to move ahead with being able to provide these munitions?
Thank you for the question, Senator. Yes, I intend to sit down day one, and we are going to go through every contract that we have and understand what exactly they say and what flexibility they do or do not give us, what contract needs to change or not change, and why. I intend to do the same thing as it relates to an audit. I need to understand why the Navy cannot pass an audit. The Marine Corps has done it 2 years running now. They deserve a lot of credit for that. I think that's a great thing. We are going to change and create much more accountability and understanding, because all of these things affect readiness. And as I said in my statement, readiness is critical. And I think we're at a very critical inflection point, particularly versus our peer or near peer adversaries. So these are all things that are a reflection of a culture, as I mentioned, in decay. We really need to have a tight focus on these things. If we don't know where our inventory is, how can we have a training mission? I've heard stories of training missions that are failed because the equipment wasn't there, and so we ended up losing that money, and that's not good.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you, Senator Cotton.
Senator Shaheen.
Good morning, Mr. Phelan. Congratulations on your nomination. Welcome to your family and your friends who are here with you. Last week, Secretary Hegseth issued a memo to the Defense Department, which we've referenced already, but it asked the services and the Joint Staff for proposals to cut the defense budget by 8% every year for the next 5 years. The memo provides a handful of exemptions, including for the Virginia-class submarine program and military construction in the Indo-Pacific only. It does not provide an exemption for our country's maritime industrial base. And I'm actually concerned that Secretary Hegseth may not be aware of the work that the Navy is doing to modernize our public shipyards. It's something that we discussed when you were kind enough to meet with me. But because in his questions for the record following his own confirmation hearing, Secretary Hegseth said, and I'm quoting here in his statement, the Navy has not made investments to modernize our 4 public shipyards. Mr. Phelan, that simply is not true. The Shipyard Infrastructure Optimization Plan, or SIOP, which we discussed a little bit when we met, is a 20-year, $21 billion investment to make sure that our shipyards are ready to meet the needs that our Navy has into the next century. I think we discussed the Portsmouth Naval Shipyard, which we have an interest in New Hampshire. It sits between New Hampshire and Maine. It's our nation's longest-serving public shipyard.
No, it's in Maine, Senator, just to be clear.
But it has an address that's Portsmouth, New Hampshire. So I'm willing to share it with you, Senator King. It has the best record for on-time, on-budget maintenance and repair of our submarine force. So I appreciate your focus on operational readiness, but I'm trying to square how operational readiness comports with the 8% budget cuts that are going to affect our investment in our public shipyards.
Thank you for the question, Senator Sheen, and I did appreciate the time with you, and it was enjoyable. What I would say to you is my understanding, again, and I've just read what is in the paper, is that there is, Secretary Hegseth has talked about this as a planning tool to kind of look at what would happen if we need to cut 8%. And that's my understanding, which I think is a useful exercise to go through, which is where would we cut if we need to cut? Now, my also understanding is it is to take money away from non-lethal activities and reallocate that capital to more lethal activities. Do I view the construction of our subs and ships as lethal activities? The answer is yes, because we need to have these ships and we need to get them out there quickly. Go ahead, sorry.
Well, and as you know, our nuclear attack submarines are one of the advantages that we have over the Chinese. And as we're thinking about how do we stay competitive and stay ahead, it's very important that we ensure that we are able to maintain those subs and keep them operational.
Yeah, that is critical, and I believe that both the Secretary of Defense and the President would agree with those statements. Our nuclear subs and attack subs are critical, and so whatever we need to do to get them out as fast as possible, on time, hopefully quicker than the delays that are currently being estimated, and hopefully with some budget savings, we should be able to do that. So I think that's very critical. I do look forward to visiting the shipyard in Maine and New Hampshire as well, and see what you're doing. And one of the things I want to see is, you guys are doing things on time. Why aren't other shipyards adopting this? What are the things that are not happening? And those are things we need to really start to do.
Well, one of the things that's critical to ensuring that that work continues on time and on budget is making sure that we have the workforce that's required to do that maintenance. 2 weeks ago, Senator Collins and I sent a letter to Mr. Emmert, who is the acting Secretary of the Navy, pending your confirmation, asking him to work with the Office of Personnel Management to create an exception for shipyard employees that would protect them from mass layoffs. We've received no response from Mr. Emmert. The Pentagon is reportedly preparing to fire up to 75,000 civilians, as Senator Reid said. Portsmouth, I think, cannot afford to cut its workforce. In fact, they need to hire 550 workers annually just to keep up with the Navy's demand for submarine repairs. So can you commit to this committee that you're going to engage with OPM to protect our employees who are necessary to ensure that they can do the maintenance that's required for our nuclear subs?
Senator, I commit to you that I will look into this and I will sit down with the Secretary of Defense and go through this issue and ensure that we have the workforce we need to complete the work we need on the ships and the subs and make sure we have that talent.
Thank you. I look forward to hearing a report on that meeting.
Thank you.
Mr. Phelan, greetings. I want to continue along the line of questions that Senator Fisher had about munitions. You mentioned increasing capacity, building new facilities, and I think that's going to be important in some cases. However, there's also cases in which the Navy has consistently underfunded munitions production, and therefore we have excess capacity that isn't being fully used. That's the case, for instance, outside Camden in Arkansas, the Highland Industrial Park, where we build many of the munitions the Navy uses, like the Standard Missile 3 and the Standard Missile 6. What are your thoughts on fully funding those programs so we can get up to full capacity in the facilities that we have now for the Navy, for the other services, as well as for foreign partners?
Thank you for the question, Senator Cotton. I know it's an issue important to you. Appreciated the time we got to spend in your office. If confirmed, I will look into that. I think it's crazy to not have facilities running at full capacity. So if you're under capacity, it just raises expense in effect. It's one of the things I've noticed when I've looked at all these different weapons programs. It seems like the next missile costs more than the first missile, so you have no economies of scale. That is a prescription for bankruptcy. I don't understand how the second and third one is not less than the first one. And that's something, if confirmed, we intend to dig into very hard and understand. And I do think having more flexible manufacturing when you have excess capacity in plants that are already making munitions, we should absolutely make sure that we're taking advantage of that capacity.
Thank you. I do agree that's probably the quickest and easiest way to address some of these shortfalls. As I said, we're going to need more manufacturing capacity, but making sure that current lines that have excess capacity are fully used is probably the quickest way we can get there. I can assure you that we have lots of people in South Arkansas who are eager to do that work. One other point I'd like to make is just to encourage you, once confirmed, to work with our State Department on foreign military sales. That's another way to send the demand signal to our industry, not just our services, but our friends in Europe and the Middle East and East Asia, cutting through the red tape and allowing them to buy the weapons that we're providing here to provide for their common defense.
If confirmed, I agree with you.
Thank you. Senator Fisher also mentioned the sea-launched cruise missile, nuclear, also occasionally known as SLICM-N. I'm glad to hear you're committed to carrying out the law there. I think it's an important part of our deterrent. Another critical part of our deterrent is the Columbia-class submarine. It's one of the three legs of our nuclear triad. It's the most survivable leg because they're almost undetectable. That guarantees a second strike capability against Russia and against China in particular as China continues its breakneck nuclear buildup. Are you committed to continuing the Navy's highest priority on the Columbia-class submarine?
Thank you for the question, Senator Cotton. Yes, the nuclear triad, and in particular the Columbia-class submarine, is critical to the triad and its deterrence, and we have to absolutely make sure we get that done.
Thank you. I'm very glad to hear that. Some people up here in Congress need to hear it as well. The surface Navy has not been in a good place for a long time. I've made this case for many years now. 2 destroyers years ago were wrecked in the Pacific. The Bonhomme Richard caught fire. Commanders were found to be overburdened by administrative tasks and under-focused on warfighting. You had a friendly fire incident with the Gettysburg in the Red Sea in December of '24, and just recently a collision between the Truman and a merchant ship in the Suez Canal. I raised this for the last administration. It didn't seem like we made much progress on it. What are your thoughts on how we can get the surface Navy in particular back up to the standards of leadership and execution that the nation expects?
Thank you for the question. I did read the study that you helped commission in 2021, and I think one of the captains mentioned compliance-centered warfare versus warfighter-centered warfare. This comes back to the kind of culture issues that I mentioned, which is I think that we've lost some of the adaptability, some of the accountability, some of making sure that people are doing their jobs and those who are being promoted are the right ones. And so I think there's also a lot of pressure on these captains and these commanders today because we're undermanned, and that puts pressure on the entire force, which is very difficult. So I think this comes back to recruiting. I think it comes back to retention. I think it's making sure that we promote the best. These people are operating huge assets that are very, very valuable. And so we need to make sure they have the skills and that they have the requisite capabilities around them to execute on this. So if confirmed, I will focus on this relentlessly, and I would hope that we would not have any more issues like that at all.
Thank you. Senator King.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I love your focus on maintenance. I have a half facetious but half serious suggestion. We should benchmark our availability of our ships against Maersk and Carnival Cruise Lines. If they had the low availability that we have, they'd been out of business a long time ago. And you understand that. When you have an enormous capital asset, it should be used. Every minute that it's not used is penalizing the taxpayers and also diminishing the effectiveness of the Navy. So I hope that you'll really focus on that and see, and I'd like to see the metrics over a period of years of time in dry dock versus availability. So I take it that that's going to be a significant focus of your work.
Thank you for the question, Senator King, and I did enjoy our time together. I jokingly say that President Trump has texted me numerous times, very late at night, sometimes after 1 in the morning, of rusty ships or ships in a yard, asking me what am I doing about it, and I've told him I'm not confirmed yet and have not been able to do anything about it, but I will be very focused on it. So I view it as a critical issue, as you and I do, and I think your idea about benchmarking versus some of those other private sector companies is a very good idea, and understanding how they keep these things running is very important. I know under a prior secretary, before they used Southwest Airlines to come in to help with our planes and getting more efficient. So I think there's a lot of best practices to be shared across the two, and I'm hoping with my relationships and contacts in the private sector, we should be able to do that.
And I loved it when you said, we've never done it that way before is not a sufficient excuse. We've got to be looking forward, not backward. And that brings me to fighting the next war rather than the last war. There are two areas we have fallen behind in, and I believe have been very damaging to national security and our deterrent. One is directed energy, the other is hypersonics. For years, I've been asking admirals that have been sitting in your seat, you're in the GIUK gap. Hypersonic missile is launched from Murmansk. It will hit your aircraft carrier in 12 minutes. What do you do? I've never had a good answer to that question. We've got to be able to answer that question. If part of our deterrent and our strategy is forward-based naval assets, we've got to have defensive capability as well as offensive capability in hypersonics. Do you take that as a mission?
I do, Senator King. I believe, as I think Mr. Feinberg the other day mentioned, hypersonics is a key component to our defense, and we seem to be behind. And I believe we need to focus on that. I think it's to directed energy. You and I spoke about this when we met. I believe that recently the Navy executed a successful directed energy defense against drones in the Red Sea. I think it was the Helios program, which was very effective. I think it's a very smart way to deter drone attacks using $2 million missiles to take out $30,000 drones is not a model that's going to survive.
Not very businesslike.
No.
And the directed energy, I think, is about 50 cents a shot once you have the device there. And I do appreciate that finally the Preble and the Helios system are in the Red Sea. It's taken an awfully long time. So that's one I hope you'll follow up on. The next major surface combatant is called DDX. It's a successor to the DDG, which is being built now in Mississippi and in Maine. By the way, I want to invite you both to the ill-named Portsmouth Naval Shipyard and to Bath Iron Works, where the DDGs are built. There was in our legislation, we talked about fostering a collaborative relationship between the Navy and the two major shipyards that build DDGs on the DDX design, so that it's designed and is buildable. One of the problems is design is separated and then you go to build it and it's very, very expensive. I hope you will commit to continuing that collaborative relationship and actually stepping it up, because I understand it has faltered to some extent.
Thank you for the question, Senator King. If confirmed, I look forward to visiting Maine and New Hampshire with you. Yes, I think I'm very focused on that. I think understanding, I've been trying to spend as much time trying to understand how the whole process works. I read a book about how the B-2 bomber was designed by 12 people, and I believe when I met with Senator Ernst, she had mentioned to me that I believe on one ship, we have 800 people designing a ship. So I don't know how you build something with 800 people. It just adds to requirements. You get mission creep.
Collaboration between the Navy and the shipbuilders, I think, would bear fruit for the taxpayers as well as the buildability of the ship and the time to getting there. Thank you very much. Workforce in shipbuilding, I wanted to talk about. Believe it or not, parking and childcare are issues in workforce. And that's something, it doesn't sound like it would be a Navy project to build a parking garage or a child care center, but that's absolutely necessary in order to maintain the workforce in the shipbuilding and the economy that we're in today. I hope that's something you'll attend to.
Yeah, as I mentioned in my opening statement, quality of life issues are something we need to focus on, and if confirmed, I will certainly look into that.
That's it. Thank you very much, Mr. Phelan. Thank you for your testimony. Thank you for your willingness to serve your country.
Senator Ernst.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And good morning, Mr. Phelan. I want to start by welcoming you, saying thank you for stepping up for this position, and to your family as well. Thank you so much. Now, we've talked about this, but I've long been committed to cutting waste in Washington, D.C., and even the areas that are very, very important to me, like the Department of Defense and the Navy as well, they are no exception. So the Department of the Navy receives about 30% or a little more of the defense budget, but there's a lot of financial mismanagement, and we have audit failures that are persisting there. So what reforms will you implement to ensure budget accountability and financial transparency throughout the Department of the Navy?
Thank you for the question, Senator Ernst. I know that's a topic important to you, and I appreciated the time we spent in your office. I think, as I mentioned, you know, in the private sector, if you fail an audit, two things happen. You either go to jail or you get fired. And so I think you need to fix it very fast. What I don't currently know, and I've gotten two different answers as I was getting kind of preparatory briefs, is some have said we have the systems in place to tell us where everything is, and others have told me we've got 3 more fleet commands to get done. So I don't know the answer. Okay. I will get the answer if confirmed and get to it very quickly. I think it's, you know, candidly, we should be embarrassed that we cannot pass these things and that we don't know where they are. That's important. And it's little things that you don't do that start to become big problems later. And so I suspect that financial sorts of management, financial discipline are just not viewed as that important throughout the Navy, and it's always that they'll get the money. And I think that just needs to change. That's a culture change. That's a shift. I think we need to be more transparent, more communicative, and if confirmed, I will sit down and very quickly we will get our arms around when we will get this done. I know that Congress and the committees authorized us to meet an audit by 2028. My question is if we have all these systems in, why can't it happen this year? I've not gotten that answer, but I promise you I will, and you will hear directly from me and straight from me if we can't get there and the reasons why. And I will endeavor to get those fixed as quick as possible.
I appreciate that. And I just want to take a moment and get on my soapbox about being very wise about some of our acquisitions. We've talked about the acquisitions process, but I want to remind everybody that we all need to participate in exercising a little more thoughtfulness when it comes to our taxpayer dollars. The Navy procured a number of littoral combat ships years ago when I was first coming into the United States Senate. The Navy didn't want them, the Navy didn't need them, and yet the primes, the Congress, everybody said you're going to have them. So we ran into a number of issues with those. Many of them they're just unusable. So they have been mothballed already. We spent billions and billions and billions of dollars on ships we didn't need, can't survive. What a waste. that money could have been poured into other systems that we're talking about today. But I also want to remind you that we need to think about the future fight. It's not necessarily all about the aircraft carriers and the destroyers. There are a lot of ways we can do intelligence gathering and using other platforms, autonomous vehicles, and we need to think about technology as we move forward too. So we don't have to rely solely on these ginormous prime systems that are out there. So with that, and just very little time remaining, we do still have a lot of personnel and workforce challenges, but also the supply chain struggles, which have left many of our ships waiting for critical spare parts and maintenance. We have about a $1.8 billion backlog of deferred maintenance. What are your thoughts on getting to those backlogs? How can we reduce that?
Thank you for the question, Senator. Look, important, very important problem we have that we need to get focused on very quickly. I think in terms of understanding the maintenance backlogs and the issues, again, I need to get in there and go take a look and understand what's happening and why. I've heard different things. It's almost, I feel sometimes when I've been in these preparatory meetings that it's like a contractor doing a project. It's always someone else causes a problem. So until we can get to the root cause, I can't answer your question optimally, but if confirmed and once in, I will get my arms around this very quickly and do that. I think to your point about having the right arsenal, the right tools, I intend to sit down with the combatant commanders to better understand what it is they need and why. I think there are a lot of learning lessons from the recent conflict. I think there's a lot of implications on the Navy in terms of what's happened in some of these recent conflicts and understanding what weapons we need. Most important, we can't fight yesterday's fights. We have to fight tomorrow's fights. Mm-hmm. So incorporating all that, I think, will be very important and critical.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Senator Rosen.
Thank you, Senator Cotton, and thank you, Mr. Phelan, your family, for being here today. As we discussed in our meeting, Nevada is proud to host Naval Air Station Phelan, home to Top Gun and our nation's premier area carrier air wing, and our Navy SEAL training centers. The Nevada delegation worked for years with the Navy, federal agencies, and local and tribal governments to pass modernization for the Phelan Range Training Complex into law, which we did in 2023 in our NDAA. Modernization is going to expand that range by 600,000 acres. The Navy's in phase 1 of this modernization, currently working to meet the requirement under law that grazing permit holders who will no longer be able to graze their livestock anymore, receive full and complete compensation for their lifetime of losses, as the Navy needs this land to modernize. As the Navy goes through the process of appraising the loss of these permits, it is critical that our ranching community in Nevada, and Nevada stakeholders are adequately and fully compensated. Unfortunately, the first payment offers to ranchers in the B16 range have been well below the estimated value of the land. Appraisals must consider FSA loans, groundwater availability, and the lifetime value of the permit and business. I understand these meetings between the Navy, impacted ranchers are happening regularly, and these specific concerns have been raised extensively. So, Mr. Phelan, will you commit to reviewing and reassessing the Navy's payment offers based on the latest input your team in Northern Nevada has received to ensure that every single permittee holder in Nevada is made whole?
Senator Rosen, thank you for the question. I appreciate the important work you've done on this issue, and I know in our meeting we spent a lot of time on this. As I mentioned to you in our meeting, I have a great appreciation for multi-generational owners of land and how they feel about it and trying to get the right thing. Phelan is a very, very important base. It's a critical training both for air and for our SEALs. And if confirmed, I will look into this matter, as I mentioned to you, and make sure that we create a fair deal for those landowners and for the American taxpayer.
So I'm going to ask you for a specific commitment. I'm willing to set up the Zoom with key members from your team, the appropriate members who need to be at the table, and my constituents who are having these issues to have them, I'll make it on a Zoom, all be in the Zoom room so that they can connect, that they can talk to each other, because this is what has been missing. Will you commit to helping me to organize that as quickly as possible?
Senator, I'm happy to have that Zoom call on us to go through that, if confirmed.
Thank you. The other issue we have in Phelan, of course, rural Nevada, is the remoteness of Phelan Naval Air Station. It's a major asset. It provides, as you know, the range space needed to ensure that our fleet is deployable and operationally ready. The base has been designated a remote duty installation since 1989, and quality of life challenges accompany it. It is the only Navy base in the continental United States designated as a critical housing area. Housing's in very short supply, and well, not just in Nevada, I know across the country. But the vast majority of those stationed at Phelan either live in Reno or Carson City, which are both about an hour away. And so the Navy anticipates entering into a public-private venture to build 172 new homes in Phelan, but more infrastructure is needed to support the mission as we expand, and we need more firefighters. And we also have to expand our existing wastewater treatment, the infrastructure. So given the importance of the mission at Phelan, combined with the Phelan Range Training Complex, FRTC, the modernization, the base is expected to grow by 35%. Further critical services, child care, medical care, all of these things are really needed. So if confirmed, will you meet with stakeholders so we can continue to grow Phelan and be sure that the services are there for everyone who works there?
Senator, thank you for the question. I know this is, again, a very important topic to you. If confirmed, I intend to look into this. I know the housing shortage is real there, and we need to focus on it. And I look forward to getting the stakeholders together to study this issue and try to get to an optimal outcome.
Thank you. I appreciate it. The importance of Phelan Naval Air Station on our operational readiness, the readiness of our naval aviators, our Navy SEALs, some of our special operations is critical so that we expand this base. We have the services, so we are ready to do whatever we need to, servicemen and women, and support them. It's critically important. Thank you.
Senator Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Phelan, thank you very much for your willingness to serve and your family. I appreciate your willingness to take a lot of time with me in a couple meetings, and I'm looking forward to supporting your confirmation. This chart here depicts, I think, the biggest challenge going to be facing you as Secretary of the Navy. I think it's the biggest challenge facing our military. And that's the challenge of the Chinese Communist Party's PLA is on pace to surpass a 400-ship Navy this year, and by the end of 2030 is on pace to have about 120 more ships compared to our very weak shipbuilding attempts. In 2023, China added 30 ships to its fleet, 15 of which were large surface combatants. We added 2. I think that's going to define the tenure of your time as Secretary, whether it's successful or not, if we can start to address this challenge. Fortunately, as you're seeing in this hearing, you will have very strong bipartisan support. Once you get in, take a look under the hood on exactly how we need to address this. Let me ask one question. One of the things that hasn't come up yet is the ability to work with our allies to make use of their existing shipbuilding capacity, lessons learned from their shipyards, potential investments. President Trump has expressed an interest in that kind of idea. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Thank you for the question, Senator Sullivan, and appreciate it. Appreciate the time we spent together. Look, this is a critical issue. I think all options have to be on the table. We cannot fall behind. We're already too far behind. So I think that we have to definitely look at expertise and skill that foreign partners have, whether that means they build components. We need to look at that. Or, you know, as you know, Hanwha has recently bought the Philadelphia shipyard, so they're going to look at enhancing that and making that better. So bringing their capital and skill sets here, I think, will be important. I think this is very, very critical thing you've pointed out.
Let me ask just real quick. There's a lot of focus on different surface and submarine warships, all the different platforms. Can you commit to me, and you and I have talked about this, to keep an eye on the amphib fleet? The GAO recently came out with a report saying the readiness in the amphib fleet is in a dismal state. Less than half of all the ships in our amphib fleet, including 4 of the 9 big deck amphibs, are not deployable. Can you work with me and this committee on that very important issue? As you know, we got in the law a couple of years ago an amendment of mine saying a minimum of 31 amphibs, 10 big deck amphibs. The last Secretary of the Navy literally ignored that. I'd like to get your commitment to work with me so the Marine Corps can have 3 MU ARGs to deploy around the world, which is a huge force capability for the United States.
Thank you, Senator. I know this question and issue is very important to you. I'm glad you raised it. Yes, I will look into this and work with you on this. And I know this committee's passed it and it's a law, and we need to try to meet that.
Thank you. Let me, the ranking member mentioned Marine Corps force design. That's an innovative approach the Marines have taken. I think some of us believe that there's been too much combat capability cut out of the Marine Corps. Can you work with me in this committee on making sure that we have a proper balance on innovation in regard to the Marine Corps, but not getting rid of so much amphib in Marine Corps combat capability? And also, the Marines had previously looked at a UDP program. They have one in Norway for cold weather training. They looked at that in Alaska. Can you work with me on doing that as well in terms of the overall focus on Marine Corps force design?
Yes, Senator, I look forward to working with you on that.
Finally, I won't disappoint my colleagues here on the committee. Can I get that next slide? Mr. Phelan, I want to make sure you get a commitment to come to Alaska with me and see the great military up there. Not a lot of Navy and Marines, but a lot of Air Force and Army. Can I get your commitment?
Yes, I look forward to it, Senator.
So right now, Alaska's on the front lines of great power competition. This is a slide I've been showing. The Russians, the Chinese are doing bear bomber runs, naval joint task forces, strategic bomber task forces in our ADAs, in our EEZ. I mean, we're getting this. We had 2 Russian bear bomber runs just 2 weeks ago in 48 hours. The ability to address this is challenged by our infrastructure there, both naval and aviation. The NORTHCOM commander and INDOPACOM commander, in response to this, which they say are going to continue, recently said they believe that this very strategic Navy base out here, Adak, Alaska, sub-base, surface warship base, and a naval aviation base with huge fuel storage should be reopened to help address this increasing threat to our northern territory. Can I get your commitment to work with me on that?
Yes, Senator, I know it's an important issue, and I think it's worth looking at, and I intend to work with you on it and also talk with the combatant commanders and particularly Admiral Paparo on this if confirmed, and look forward to learning more about it.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, I wanted to correct the record. I misspoke earlier. The USS Preble is not in the Red Sea. It's in Japan. It should be in the Red Sea, but it's in Japan. Thank you.
Senator Peters.
Thank you, Senator Scott. Mr. Phelan, congratulations on your nomination to serve as the Secretary of the Navy, and I'm certainly happy that we were able to meet before this hearing and discuss a few of my concerns and focus areas for the Navy, and I certainly enjoyed learning about your priorities as well moving forward. During our meeting, we discussed, if you recall, at length, contracting delays, skilled personnel shortages, and overspending related to shipbuilding. And as you know, the Constellation-class frigate contract was awarded in 2020 during President Trump's first term. Unfortunately, it's experiencing delays with an expected delivery date of 2029 instead of 2026. And now, while some of this delay was certainly caused by industry, unfortunately, a good portion of that blame can be squarely put on the Navy. So my question for you, sir, is confirmed. How will you collaborate with Congress and industry to ensure timely delivery and sustainment, specifically of the Constellation-class frigate?
Thank you, Senator Peters, for the question, and I did enjoy our time together. This program is a mess, is what it looks like. If confirmed, I plan to dig into this very quickly and understand the issues, and we'll come back to this committee very fast with the knowledge that we have as soon as we get to the root cause of the problem. Most of what I've seen it's come from what I've read. I don't know if it's requirement creeps. I've heard that we were using 80% design of an existing and only modifying at 20, and that's now been reversed to 80% customized and 20% standardized. I think we now have a frigate that potentially looks more like a carrier or a battleship, actually, or a destroyer, I would say. Again, I don't know until I get in there and go take a look at it. There are a number of issues, and there's a lot of pointing fingers at one another. If confirmed, I pledge to work with you on this and get our arms around this and get this resolved quickly and understand what we need to do.
Well, I appreciate that. Roughly 40% of the Constellation-class frigate workforce is comprised of Michiganders. And I'm extremely proud of that workforce and also very proud of the versatile mission and the capabilities of the frigate from air, surface, electronic, and anti-submarine warfare. But my question for you, sir, is if confirmed, do I have your commitment to support the Constellation-class frigate program? Got to work through all of these challenges, but as a long-term cornerstone of the fleet due to the critical role that it will play in those various domains?
Thank you for the question, Senator. As I said, I will look at this and work both with the Secretary of Defense and the Deputy Secretary of Defense to understand all of the programs we have and how they all fit and how this important program fits in. And so once I've had an opportunity to do that, I look forward to coming back to you to discuss it.
Very good. I appreciate that. Mr. Phelan, in 2023, then Secretary of Navy Carlos Del Toro announced a new maritime strategic plan to conduct national whole-of-government efforts to transform U.S. and allied naval and commercial maritime power. The Michigan Maritime Manufacturing Initiative was formally launched at that time within the Maritime Strategy Strategic Plan. And through the initiative, the Department of Defense is implementing pipelines and programs targeted to meeting the Navy's demand signal for thousands of new workers that will be necessary for this and jobs across my state as well as all across the Great Lakes region. So my question for you is, how do you plan on using the submarine industrial-based funding to partner with states like Michigan, who are industrial states and manufacturing states, particularly precision manufacturing, that can play a key role in addressing supply chain and workforce challenges in this highly technical field?
Thank you, Senator, for the question. Look, I think Michigan has a great tradition of manufacturing and industrial capability. I think that we need to look across the country to find the appropriate expertise and skill set and workers to do what is a highly complex manufacturing process. The fact that some of those skills already reside there is obviously an advantage and an important advantage. So if confirmed, I will look into that, and this is, as I said before, an utmost priority is making sure that we can ensure that our subs are done on time and on budget.
Right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Phelan. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. All right. Mr. Phelan, let me just ask a couple questions. First off, can we put up we have a picture. I just want to get your reaction. I don't know if you've seen this picture yet. This was the USS Dewey, the Singapore last week. How does it make you feel?
Please don't give it to President Trump because I'll get a text at like 1 in the morning. So if,
I'm taking over the White House right after this, so you'll know exactly what your expectations are.
Yeah, I think that's it's terrible. I think they should be ashamed. I mean, would you want to go on that ship?
No, I served on a ship. If this happened on our ship, we would all been painting all night long. We had to constantly paint the darn ship. I mean, we never would go into a port when I was in the Navy. It looked like this, so it was pretty disgusting. So you've heard those stories. We don't have enough ships. We can't build ships. We're not building the right ships. Recruiting's bad. Retention's bad. Maintenance is bad. So give me, what's your pitch? What's your, so you're a business guy. You took over, you've dealt with troubled companies before. And so how would you do it?
Thanks for the question. Look, it's very complicated because this is a huge organization that's very complex with a lot of tradition in it. I think at the end of the day, I have to work with the key senior leadership and set the vision and the tone for what we are going to try to accomplish. And I'm hopeful that a large majority of that leadership is on board with that vision and that tone and what we're going to try to do. And if they're not, then they should reconsider staying on ultimately. I need them and they're going to need me. And so we need to work together in order to try to turn this around. I think we're at as I said, a critical inflection point. I take our adversaries at their word. These are very strong people who are going to try to take on our dominance and try to supplant the United States. And I think we're at a much more critical time than most people recognize. And so I think we need to fix the Navy. I think it was Ronald Reagan who said the only thing more expensive than a Navy is not having a good Navy. And I believe that's actually right. So I think it's basically setting the proper vision, setting the proper benchmarks, key performance indicators, and then creating the appropriate feedback loops to make sure we're getting those done and having the right team to do it. And we've done this before with many companies. Again, this is a complicated one with big tradition. Some of those traditions need to be respected. Some of them need to be questioned, and we need to get modernized. And so that's what I'd hope I'd bring to the table is more of a partnership approach, but with a shared vision and purpose.
So were any of your companies like this?
I've dealt not with the company this size, but I've dealt with companies that had a lot of complications and that needed to be changed quickly.
All right, thank you. Senator Warren.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. So congratulations on your nomination, Mr. Phelan. Let's talk about efficiency at the Defense Department. Last year, the Navy asked for $260 billion to buy everything from ships to night vision goggles. One reason it costs so much, big defense contractors slip restrictions into their contracts that deny sailors access to technical data they need to maintain or repair equipment, even equipment that the Navy owns. So I want to give you an example. The Navy's littoral combat ships are designed to operate close to shore, to hunt mines, and to sink submarines. But this ship has been bogged down with maintenance issues, and when something breaks, sailors are not allowed to make repairs themselves because Lockheed Martin and General Dynamics don't let them have access to the necessary data and materials. So what does the Navy do? The Navy has to fly contractors out to these ships, which ProPublica found, quote, adds millions of dollars in travel costs and often delays missions. So, Mr. Phelan, these kinds of extra costs and delays to fly contractors to the Pacific to fix minor repairs, are they an efficient use of taxpayer dollars?
Does not sound like it to me, Senator.
I'm glad to hear that. Let me give you another example. The Government Accountability Office found that fuel tank level indicators were improperly calibrated on the USS Fort Lauderdale, built by Huntington Ingalls. Now, it seems like an easy fix, right? You just go in and recalibrate these things. The Navy's technicians were denied the information they needed to do that. So every time they had to recalibrate the indicators, the Navy had to fly out one of the contractor's technicians. Mr. Phelan, does this sound like does not being able to maintain and important ship parts put the Navy's readiness at risk?
It sounds like it, Senator, and I think, as I mentioned earlier, these contracts are something that really need to be reviewed and better understood. And I think that if confirmed, that's something I intend to do, is focus on that.
And I appreciate that, Mr. Phelan, but I want to see more than just reviewed here. Sailors need to be able to rely on their equipment, and that means being able to maintain their own equipment. But from fiber optic navigation lights to cranes that deploy search and rescue boats, sailors do not have the right to repair their own equipment thanks to defense contractors who want to squeeze more money out of the military. Many people on this committee, both sides, Democrats and Republicans, understand the risk here. Chairman Wicker released a report last year showing DOD, quote, consistently underperforms in procuring data rights, and pointed to the lack of technical data as a factor that, quote, inevitably leads to reduced training and readiness. Mr. Phelan, can we count on you to advance the Navy's right to repair its own equipment?
Thank you for the question, Senator. I know this is an issue very important to you. As I said, it is something that I intend to study and look at, and what I'd commit to you is let me come back to you and look at this and understand it, because it is a complicated issue. I am in agreement with a lot of the examples you've given do not make sense to me, but I am not up to speed enough yet to give you that answer, but I will come back and see you and commit to that and look at this.
And I appreciate that, but I just want to say right now, this makes me uneasy because there is so much pressure to continue to let these defense contractors take advantage of our service members who we waste taxpayer dollars, we delay missions, we actually put people at risk because we're not permitting basic right to repair. Technical data needs to be a must-have in acquisition contracts for the Navy. My service members' Right to Repair Act would make sure that the Navy and every other part of our military have fair access to the data rights and to the other materials that service members need to be able to repair their own equipment and keep themselves safe. Military right to repair has bipartisan support here in the Senate. I want to work with the administration, I want to work with my colleagues, and I want to work with you. We owe it to our taxpayers and we owe it to the men and women in the field to get this straightened out. What's happening right now is fundamentally wrong and we can put a stop to it. I apologize for going over, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Senator. And Senator Banks is next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and congratulations, Mr. Phelan. You have been nominated to my dream job, the Secretary of the Navy, and I don't think in my lifetime it's ever been more important that we have a leader like you to make the Navy great again, make it strong again. It's especially important to me because I wore the uniform and served as a Navy Reserve officer for 10 years, and I wanted to ask you from the outset, have you thought a lot about the importance of the reserves and making sure that the Navy Reserves remains a strong component of the United States Navy? Have you given a lot of thought to that and how important it is and what you can do to strengthen it and make it even better?
Thank you, Senator Banks, for the question. I know it's an important issue to you, and I enjoyed spending time with you in your office. I think the reserves are something we need to really look at and strengthen and make better. I think it's kind of, what I've heard, again, not in there, it's that the reserves are kind of an afterthought a little bit today in today's Navy, and that's a mistake. And I think you've seen reserve forces used with great efficacy in the Marines and in some of the other service branches, and I think that's something to be looked at, and if confirmed, I look forward to working with you on that and getting some ideas.
I appreciate your commitment to that. I deployed to Afghanistan as a Navy Reserve Supply Corps officer. The Navy Reserves gave me an opportunity a little bit later in life than typical military service to use skills that I had, experiences that I had to contribute to wear the uniform, to serve my country, never thinking that I would give 20 years and retire, but that avenue to service is what the Navy Reserves, the reserve component, is all about. And I look forward to work. I appreciate your commitment to making sure that everyone in the the Navy organization understands how valuable the reserves are and work together to strengthen it. The other thing that we talked about in my office I want to talk about today is the historic recruitment crisis in the United States Navy. In the over 50 years of an all-volunteer force, the Navy's missed the mark year after year under the last administration. The last administration had to lower standards to meet their recruitment goals. And I wonder if you thought about that. I mean, how can we get standards back to where they need to be to find the best and the brightest, the young leaders, whether enlisted or in the officer corps, to fix the recruitment crisis of the United States Navy?
Thank you for the question, Senator. Look, I think it's critical that we have standards that are high and that we have people who can meet those standards. The business is warfighting, and there's no margin for error in that. So you need the most capable and best people, and we need to have high standards to meet that. I think that there are some things to learn from some of the other services in terms of what they've done recruiting-wise. I think the Marines in particular have done a very effective job at it. What I understand is the Marines put some of their best leadership into the recruiting role, and that's one of the reasons why they do so well with it. So I'm going to try to adapt some of the best practices we get from other services and from my business experience in how to attract and retain talent. A lot of it is making sure that you know, whatever the job may be, that you kind of have the appropriate skill sets mapped out, and then you try to hire that person. And I think that's really an important thing. And I think one of the important things, what I've learned in business, is you always wanted to hire the person for tomorrow, not for today. And what happens to a lot of organizations is you hire for that immediate need, and then that person can't grow to that job. You know, in this business, we need to be hiring the Mr. and Mrs. Tomorrows to make sure that they can compete and do. So recruiting will be a major focus for us.
Yeah, your business background, what you bring to the table, I think can go a long way to helping improve that process. I mean, the great news is that the day President Trump was elected on election day, we saw an immediate bump in recruitment in all of the branches. I mean, it's remarkable, but it just goes to show that when we tell the young men and women all over this country that America is worth fighting for, that wearing the uniform is indeed the greatest honor that you can have, then those recruitment numbers will go up. And I think you're the man for the job to help us get that done. I appreciate you serving our country in a big way in the United States Navy. I look forward to working with you. You have my full support. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Thank you, Senator Banks. Senator Blumenthal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for your willingness to serve, Mr. Phelan. I think you're very familiar with the firings that have taken place in the Defense Department already, the firings of some of the top military leaders, apparently based purely on an issue of political loyalty, not loyalty to the Constitution. Some of our most distinguished and dedicated leaders, including the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the Chief of Staff of the Navy, Lisa Franchetti. Have you spoken to her?
I have not, Senator.
Do you plan to do so?
If confirmed, Senator, I'm happy to hear her views and understand her perspective on things. She obviously did that. I was not privy to the releases of those people.
You'd agree with me that she is a dedicated officer with an extraordinarily distinguished record of contributing to our country.
Yes.
In addition, the administration appears to be undertaking a first wave, part of a purge, an 8% slash to both the budget and defense workforce. I view it as a breathtaking act of disrespect. The administration has branded these positions as non-mission critical. And I don't know whether you're familiar with a memo on the fiscal year 2026 President's Budget relook that reveals the staggering implications of these decisions. Within its pages, somewhat buried, is a list of proposed reductions amounting to an 8% decimation of the existing FY26 budget estimate submission. It's a cut of $70 billion from the $876 billion defense budget. And to put it in perspective, the Pentagon spent only $100 million on DEI initiatives and approximately $600 million on climate-related programs. So combined, these expenditures are only about 0.1% of the defense budget, and yet there is this huge slashing cut plan that will cause 72,000 personnel to be cast aside, along with spending cuts of upwards of $70 billion. Do you support those kind of cuts?
Thank you for the question, Senator. As I understand it, it is the budget, these proposed budget cuts were put in for planning purposes and then to basically redirect assets from non-war fighting elements.
That's why I'm asking you, do you support those cuts?
Senator, I don't have enough familiarity with them to tell you whether I'd support them or not support them.
Well, would you walk into a corporation, you've taken over many, and you've turned them around, knowing that already a decision had been made to slash your workforce by 10% indiscriminately across the board, and you had no say in that decision?
Again, Senator, I'm not privy to how they got to their conclusions on this or what they did or what the criteria was, so it's difficult for me to comment on it.
Well, would you walk into a situation in a deal, you've done many, you've turned around corporations where there was a 10% slash in workforce before you even started?
Again, Senator, I don't, it's a hard question to answer because I think typically
you know, I think that is probably a no. I don't think any expert business person in your line of work would do it. Would you agree with me that the concerns about politicization of our armed services are well-founded given the kind of firings that we've seen?
Senator, I don't believe politicization should be in the military, and I don't believe those actions were politicization, but I don't know. Again, I wasn't part of them, and I've not had any discussions around them.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Blumenthal. Senator Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Phelan, thank you for being willing to do this very important job. The Navy, in particular, means a lot to me. I spent 25 years on active duty in the United States Navy, one of the great fighting forces in the world. I understand earlier you mentioned my Ships for America Act. I appreciate that. Senator Young and I and House members are working on bringing back the U.S. Merchant Marine from its rather dismal state of about 80 ocean-going merchant vessels to something much larger than that. Our adversary on the oceans, China, has 5,500 ocean-going merchant ships. We have 80. We've got to rebuild this industry. It's a national security and economic security issue for us. So thank you for bringing it up. Look forward to getting your feedback on the legislation. But what I want to discuss now is something more specific, a weapon system called SLCM-N, the nuclear version of the submarine-launched cruise missile that is sort of being debated. I want to make sure we're clear on the direction of the system and understand the opportunity costs that might come with fielding it. So if we field SLCM-N, it would likely necessitate removing some conventional munitions from Virginia-class submarines and making some significant changes to the security systems, the launch control systems within the submarines. So, and that is concerning to me if we wind up in a conflict in the Western Pacific with China. I don't think that conflict is inevitable. One of our, great advantages over other navies is our submarine force. So, Mr. Phelan, given the cost and operational challenges, do you believe the SLCM and the nuclear-armed Sea Launch Cruise Missile Program is worth some of the trade-offs? And if confirmed, what direction do you plan to take the Navy in with regards to the integration of this missile? And do you think we need it for deterrence?
Senator Kelly, thank you for the question. I did appreciate time we spent in your office and your viewpoints on this. I thought were interesting. I think, look, I've not been read into the program, so I don't have classified information, so it makes it a little difficult for me to ask you. I know there's very strong debates on both sides as it relates to it, and I look forward to working with the Secretary of Defense to come up with what we hope will be the optimal answer as it relates to it. So if confirmed, I look forward to working with you on the program and better understanding the pros and cons of it, and hopefully coming up with the best solution.
Yeah, it's a big decision. It's one of the, I'd say, bigger ones the Navy has to face with regards to a weapon system. Another decision that's going to have to be made here at some point is whether to move forward with the development of FAXX. So this is the Navy's version of NGAD, the Next Generation Air Dominance Fighter. We need an asymmetric capability. My view on this in trying to penetrate the A2AD bubble that China has built in the Western Pacific is we need a capability that can fight its way in. Right now, the F-35 has fantastic capability, very hard to see on radar. I mean, its stealth qualities of that airplane, are not matched anywhere else in the world. But China continues to build significant weapon systems, surface-to-air, air-to-air missile systems that have much greater range, ways to detect fighter aircrafts. This is changing very, very rapidly. So I'm not going to ask you a question on this. I just want some reassurance that you understand the challenge in the Western Pacific, that we can't just replace this stuff right now anyway with unmanned systems. Hearing some of that from some corners of the administration where the thought is that we could just do all this stuff with drones. We can't. We do not control the electronic warfare environment the way we would need to do that. I think someday we could get there. I just don't believe now's the day. And with the Chinese, some of their innovation, there are areas where we've traditionally stayed way ahead. I'm concerned that we're getting to the point in some of these areas where they are catching up. And these are the kind of things we need. So thank you. I look forward to working with you on it.
Thank you, Senator Kelly. No doubt Mr. Phelan is now quite aware of your views on this issue. And they make a lot of sense. Senator Hirono.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Welcome to you and your family. I asked the following two foundational questions relevant to fitness to serve of every nominee before any of my committees. Since you became a legal adult, have you ever made unwanted requests for sexual favors or committed any verbal or physical harassment or assault of a sexual nature?
No, Senator, I've not.
Have you ever faced discipline or entered into a settlement relating to this kind of conduct?
No, Senator, I've not.
Mr. Phelan, I represent Hawaii, which is the locale for INDOPACOM. The largest is the largest AOR critical to our nation's defense. I'm glad that you testified that politics should not enter into how the DOD is run, and of course the Navy, but we have Elon Musk with his chainsaw cutting government programs and eliminating positions without any transparency or criteria. Do you think this approach will hurt Navy strength and readiness?
Thank you for the question, Senator Hirono.
That is a yes or no answer, please.
It's a hypothetical question. I don't actually know what DOJ is doing and how they're doing it. I'm not privy to that, so I can't really.
Okay, that's kind of amazing
question.
because you're going to lead the Navy, and not to insult you or anything, but I don't think you need a lot of information to conclude that a slash and burn approach to programs and personnel is the way to go. In 2021, a massive and devastating leak at the Red Hill Fuel Storage Facility contaminated Oahu's drinking water. 93,000 people were affected. They had to move to hotels. Some of them left the state altogether. And it certainly hurt the military's reputation, although it was actually a naval facility. But for the people of Hawaii, they don't need to make a distinction between something that the Navy was responsible for versus the Army or Air Force or the Marines. So it's taking a lot to rebuild the community's confidence in our Navy. So ultimately, the senior DOD leaders made the correct decision to defuel, and permanently close the facility, a complicated, as you can imagine, ongoing effort being led by the Navy's Closure Task Force. And it's scheduled to complete in 2028. I would like to get your commitment to see through the completion of the transparent closure of Red Hill, which involves not only providing the adequate resources and manpower, but also close collaboration with the state government officials and the Hawaiian community to restore trust and faith in the military.
Thank you, Senator. I know this is an issue very important to you. I'm committed to a full review of the issues at Red Hill as related to the people of Oahu and Pearl Harbor, and I'm committed to the Navy fixing the issues that the Navy is responsible for.
I think seeing this project or seeing this issue through is going to be one of the major ways that you are going to be able to restore faith. The Navy is currently building a critical new dry dock at Pearl Harbor to support Virginia-class attack submarine maintenance. And this construction project is the largest in DOD history at nearly $4.5 billion, but has been beset by significant cost overruns, including an $834 million. That's not very far from $1 billion increase just last year. I hope you are prepared to take steps to ensure that this dry dock project remains on time and on budget. And in fact, I included a provision in last year's NDAA directing the Secretary of the Navy, which would be you, should you be confirmed, to conduct briefings on steps being taken to prevent future cost overruns.
Senator, thank you for the question. I'm going to have to see a $4.5 billion dry dock. That's something seems quite astronomical to me, and if confirmed, I look forward to seeing it there and hopefully visiting with you there to see it. And you do have my commitment to getting my arms
Yes, I think that it is going to be very critical that we don't keep getting the kind of increases that happened just about 2 weeks after I was at the opening, wherein I said I hope that this is going to come in on budget. And next thing you know, it's $1 billion more. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Hirono. And Mr. Phelan, let me just say that that type of overrun has to end. We've got to wrestle this issue down to the deck. And I hope this is the moment where we can turn that around. Senator Rounds.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Mr. Phelan, first of all, thanks for the opportunity to visit with you in my office. I appreciated that. And I most certainly think that you've got a good insight into what some of the challenges are. I also want to say thank you to your family for their recognition of what you're in for and the challenges of having a family that will not see you as much as they would have otherwise. And so I appreciate their sacrifice in this as well. Mr. Phelan, as you've heard me say before, and we talked a little bit about this in my office, 24 senior DOD officials have confirmed that forcing the Department of Defense to vacate any portion of the 3.1 to 3.45 gigahertz band of the spectrum would have severely negative consequences on our warfighting capabilities. Specifically, the Navy relies heavily on spectrum, especially as it pertains to radar. As we speak, our sailors are conducting missile defense missions off the coasts of the U.S. homeland with Arleigh Burke-class destroyers, and the Navy is protecting our deployed forces in the Red Sea against pervasive Houthi missile and drone attacks with their ANSPY 6 radars on 7 different classes of ships. The Navy's Aegis combat system relies heavily on the lower 3 band, using radars to track threats and guided weapons to targets. If the Navy had to vacate that portion of the spectrum, testimony before this committee indicates it would cost up to $250 billion to migrate those capabilities elsewhere, which may not even be possible given the unique physics of the lower 3 band. If confirmed, will you advocate for protecting the Navy's warfighting systems that require spectrum to function optimally?
Senator Rounds, thank you for the question. I did enjoy our time together as well. I'm aware of this issue, and I do not believe any changes should be made that increase risk to the Navy.
Thank you. Look, I know we've got to do something about 5G and about being able to expand our abilities here in terms of 5G and beyond. The fear I have is that some interests do not understand how significant the threat is to our homeland, in particular with the fact that the president has indicated he really would like to do an Iron Dome for America like has been done in Israel. There's no way he could do that without the protection of this particular part of the band. And that's the reason why I continue to bring this up. It is critical that we continue to let the American public know with these public discussions, but also individuals, our concern about what could happen if we don't protect that band of the spectrum. So I thank you for that statement, sir. Also, I understand that it basically costs right now, and based upon what the chairman's concern has been about shipbuilding and so forth, I understand that it costs roughly twice as much to build a ship in the U.S. as it does elsewhere. Have you given any thought to how AI and automation could be leveraged to dramatically increase our shipyard efficiency?
Yes, Senator, I have, and I think there are a number of ways. I mean, we're in the early stages with AI and its implementation, its ability to impact this, but I do think that there are going to be ways to increase digital design and things that will allow us to design things quicker, to potentially reduce change orders, as I like to call them, and increase speed of production. I think there are a number of things being done with 3D printing that we need to be looking at, particularly as it relates to parts and things along those lines. So if confirmed, I look forward to working with you in this committee on some of the more technologically advanced ways we can increase manufacturing and help get our shipbuilding base in order.
Thank you. I've got language, by the way, in the NDAA, the FY25 NDAA, that would require the Navy to use AI-enabled software to optimize workflows at one or more of the shipyards. And I'm just hoping that that would be something that you would support, and it sounds like you would, so I appreciate that. Let me just finish with this. Analysts agree that there is a growing potential that our next great conflict will be a multi-theater conflict involving multiple near-peer adversaries. If confirmed, what steps would you take to prepare the Department of the Navy to simultaneously execute and sustain operations across multiple regions while maintaining readiness and deterrence globally? 2 theaters, not just one.
Thanks, Senator, for the question. Look, this is a critical thing, and I need to work with the combatant commanders, the CNO, and the Commandant of the Marine Corps. My job is to train, man, and equip the Navy to make sure that they have all the appropriate tools that they need in order to defend the country and to take on our adversaries.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Round. Senator Kane.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Phelan, good to see you again. I enjoyed our visit. A report came out this morning at 10 o'clock, so nobody's had a chance to really see it, but I would recommend it to you. It's from the GAO, and the title of it is Shipbuilding and Repair, Navy Needs a Strategic Approach for Private Sector Industrial Base Investments. And I'm just going to read you on page 67, the opening paragraph of the conclusion. Problems in Navy shipbuilding and repair have remained relatively unchanged over the past decades. Programs are not achieving cost and schedule goals, and as a result, the battle force is not sufficiently modernized and ready to meet national security needs. These problems are in part because the ship industrial base faces workforce and infrastructure challenges that put the Navy's goals out of reach. And here is the part I really wanted to read. Yet the Navy continues to expect different performance outcomes in the coming years than it has achieved in the past. There is no basis for expecting industrial base outcomes to improve without changes from the Navy that would motivate a different level of private industry investment and performance. I'd like to introduce the report for the record, Mr. Chair.
Without objection and with a hear, hear.
Yes.
It is so ordered.
And I think that this is something you're going to want to read, although much of it seems to track things that we discussed. You're a non-traditional appointee for this position, and that can be okay if the tradition is not working. And I think the punchline in this report is the tradition isn't working. I explained to you that having been on the committee now in my 13th year and always been in the sea power space, that I've kind of operated on the assumption that if we just do our job here on the resource side, the Navy and our innovative private sector will deliver a product successfully, and I've been wrong in that assumption. It's not worked. I mean, last year, we not only had a robust defense budget, but we joined together in a bipartisan way twice in the year to bulk it up, once in the April supplemental package and then once at the end of the year. So just putting more money into the bucket without changing how we're doing things, I now have completely lost confidence that that's going to solve the problem. So that leads me back to you. You're a non-traditional nominee, but you're nominated for a position where the tradition doesn't seem to be working. And so that makes me intrigued with what you might do differently than has been done in the past. When the president asked you to do the job, I know you guys, I don't want to really get into the substance so much, but he asked you for a reason. There were other people he could have asked. In the discussions with the president, what do you understand to be his priorities for the Navy and why he would think that you would be the right person to carry out those priorities?
Thank you, Senator, for the question. I did enjoy our meeting as well. I don't think I could say shipbuilding enough times in terms of the president's priorities, as he's made it very clear. I think what is missing from what I can see is a sense of urgency. It's kind of, we're just going along and it's kumbaya. And it's almost as if you're waiting for a crisis to happen to ignite things. And I think in the business of warfare, that's a dangerous place to be. So I think why the president selected me is I will bring a sense of urgency to this. I will bring a sense of accountability to this. I'm good at setting up feedback loops. I'm good at creating accountability and making sure people execute. I'm good at rewarding performance. You perform, you move up. And I think those are all things that need to happen and need to be looked at again. And I think that sense of urgency is important. You know, again, I jokingly mentioned earlier in the hearing, the president did text me, I think it was 1:18 in the morning, of like 3 rusty ships in the yard and said, what are you doing about this? This is terrible. How can this exist? Mm-hmm. He's very focused. You know, Senator Wicker initially asked, do I still want the job after hearing everything? He's a demanding man who wants things done, and it will be a challenge. But I think the Navy needs to recognize that. And I think one of the keys is you develop a strategy and a vision. And then you basically have to come up with a force goal. So that strategy is going to drive the force goal. So you sit down with the combatant commanders and come up with a force goal. And then you've got to make it affordable. So we're going to need to make trade-offs. You're going to need to look at what's working, what's not working. Legacy systems no longer matter. What other conflicts have we seen things happen that is going to inform what we should do?
I'll say on that one, one virtue of being a newcomer to this in some ways is you're not attached to a legacy system because it was the system that you trained on and that you have a particular loyalty to. I'm over time, but I'll just say this to conclude. I'm heartened to hear, I don't mind criticizing the president when I think he's wrong, but when I think he's right, I'll say it, and I think shipbuilding is a focus, shipbuilding and ship repair. And one of the little pluses in this report is they actually say that we've gotten better at ship repair in the last 5 years. Still got a long ways to go, but we actually have shown some improvement. So there may be some improvement strategies that we could think about and then, apply to shipbuilding. I'd love to go with you down to the shipyard in Norfolk sometime, the public shipyard and the Huntington Ingalls shipyard where we build carriers and subs. With that, Mr. Chair, I yield back.
Look forward to that.
I think you'll be doing a good bit of traveling to shipyards, Mr. Phelan. At this point, I ask unanimous consent to enter into the record a number of letters supporting the nomination of Mr. Phelan. The first by Thomas J. Mundell, President and CEO of the National Medal of Honor Center for Leadership. The second being a letter signed by Melissa P. Allen, President and Chief Operating Officer, and Stephen D. Cashin, Chief Executive Officer of the Third Option Foundation. The third being a letter from Robert Sweetman, Navy SEAL, retired, the founder of the Creed for Peaceful Warriors. Fourth being a letter of endorsement from Jim Hake on behalf, founder and CEO on behalf of the Spirit of America. And finally, a letter of endorsement from Pam Zimbiak, widow of Major Doug Zimbiak, known to many as the Lion of Fallujah. Without objection, those letters will also be entered into the record. Now, one final question. Mr. Phelan, regarding nuclear submarines and shipbuilding. Nuclear submarines are some of our most formidable weapons. We must get these programs back on track. The Navy developed an innovative contracting technique called SAWS, S-A-W-S, Shipbuilder Accountability and Workforce Support, SAWS. The goal of SAWS is twofold: to invest in our shipbuilders and to free billions of dollars over the next 5 years to support the shipbuilding industrial base. Regrettably, the last administration did not move forward with this plan, which has broad bipartisan support. Mr. Phelan, you've said today that we have to end business as usual. So will you commit to discussing with me soon after confirmation the benefits of SAWS?
Yes, Senator, I look forward to that.
Thank you very much. And if there are no further questions or comments, this hearing will soon be adjourned, but I must say some magic words. Yes. The record will be open for 2 days. It's right here. Questions for the record will be due to the committee within 2 business days of the conclusion of the hearing. Without objection, we are adjourned. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Senator.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First News. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed. So join us and be part of the right side of history.
I'm excited to announce that we're having our first ever mega sale on overstock clearance and brand new products. For example, save over 50% on this season's flannel sheets. Queen size only $59.98. Kings only $69.98. They sell out fast every year, so order now. Save 20% on our brand new My Crosses. They're designed in the likeness of the one I've worn every day for over 20 years. They come in men's and women's, and they're made right here in the USA. Get our 2025 six-piece My Towel sets for only $29.98. Our initial quantities are extremely low, so get them now before they go. And our best-selling standard My Pillows, just $14.98. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use this promo code to take advantage of our first ever mega sale. But wait, remember that $75 free shipping rule? Well, that ship is sailed because right now, every order ships absolutely free.
Parents, do your kids know what courage really means? It's about standing up for America even when there's a target on your back. That's why Mike Huckabee's team created the Kids Guide to the Courage of the President. This important guide tells kids everything they need to know about President Trump's unwavering courage, and you can get it for free. With your free order, you will receive free bonus gifts, including the Kids Guide to President Trump and a Christmas ornament commemorating Trump's call for us to fight. Get it all for free at freetrumpbook.com. That's freetrumpbook.com.
Families across the nation have arrived at a heartbreaking crossroad to surrender their beloved animals at alarming rates due to inflation and soaring costs of living.
There are so many overcrowded shelters. So many dogs need a home, but it's all of us working together to solve this crisis.
This fight requires both doers and dollars. Join us at Big Dog Ranch Rescue. Please sign up today.
Hey y'all, it's Silk from the Diamond and Silk Chit Chat live show. Look, don't forget to check me out right here on RSBN Network. Be sure to watch the show on Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. Yes, it's imperative that you do so, okay? I look to see y'all soon. Bye-bye.